In 1620, while the Mayflower was in Provincetown, 18 of its men sailed in a small shallop, searching for a place to live. They came to present-day Eastham, where they were met by a group of Nauset. After a brief but violent encounter, the English left towards today's Plymouth. In 2020, we remember this first encounter. We explore its meanings for today and tomorrow. My name is Joanna Hollick, and I'm the coordinator of the Sunset Series with Eastham 400. I'm here today with Chris Dudzik, the manager of Windmill Villages and a member of the Board of Trustees at Brewster Historical Society. Welcome, Chris. Could you start by telling us a little bit about Brewster Historical Society?
The Brewster Historical Society was formed in 1964, and the main goal was to collect, preserve, and display history and artifacts of Brewster's past so that future generations could have access to learn about the town's rich history. Unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond our control right now, the buildings are not presently open to the public. However, we invite anyone who's interested to come enjoy the truly beautiful site. It's a great place to come and relax, take a walk, have a picnic, enjoy some fresh air and nature while looking at some truly historic buildings.
You also have done some research into the Native American history of Brewster pre-contact with Europeans. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and some Native American artifacts?
Cape Cod was extensively settled by Native Americans prior to the first contact period. A lot of people don't realize that. The Wampanoags, more specifically the Saguatuckets, resided in present-day Brewster. Much like other Cape natives, they existed by hunter-gatherer lifestyle and even supplemented their diet with some horticulture. They grew crops of corn, beans, and squash. They were somewhat nomadic. They moved during the different seasons based on the evidence that's been recovered, closer to the bay during the summer months, and they retreated back towards the lakes during the long, cold winters that were protected from the wind by the Cape's hills and valleys. We don't really know population-wise how many numbers were living in Brewster during the pre-contact period, but we can estimate some of the other tribes locally, like the Nausets in Orleans and Eastham. At the time, there was at least 1,200 Indians that were living in those areas, while the Saguatuckets were a much smaller tribe. Based on his archaeological evidence, Brewster had quite a few natives living there. These artifacts that I have with me today will tell their story and history. So today I'm going to show and discuss briefly several of the Native American artifacts that the Brewster Historical Society will be having on an upcoming exhibit commemorating the 400th anniversary of the Mayflower's arrival. This particular display will include items from a civilization that was thriving in Brewster before the arrival of the Pilgrims. All these artifacts are found in Brewster, and many by myself since I was a child. And well, let's take a look at them. The first item we have here is a knife blade, and it's fairly well made, worked heavily. And I believe it would probably date to the late Archaic period, so between 3,000 and 6,000 years. This is probably one of the oldest artifacts that I have here today with us. This artifact was found on property that was located on the lower mill pond in Brewster. There was quite a lot of Native Americans living in that area at that time period. It was found during the construction boom of the 1980s, where a lot of these areas were built up. This artifact's fairly unique in that it's not a stone that's usually found in this area, which could offer some tantalizing questions of how it got here and did they trade with other tribes? Was the stone brought from another area? Sometimes the artifact can cause more questions than give answers. The next artifact we have here today is pretty interesting to me. I believe, based on where I found it, it's most likely net or fishing weight. You could see the groove that was cut in the middle of the stone that goes all the way around, and that secured a wrapping which allowed the stone to be cast underwater and retrieved and keep a bait or a hook underwater or a net possibly underwater. This was found by myself right after Hurricane Bob had hit, and there had been a lot of erosion caused by the storm, and some of the clay banks had caved in, and it was found right on top of a collapsed clay bank, like it had just been laying there, like somebody had just left it and was planning on coming back to catch dinner with it. This was one of my first of many net or fishing weights that I found along the shores of the Cape. And I believe this probably date to the woodland period, so it could be anywhere from 4 to 3,000 years old. Okay, the next artifact I brought today looks like, truthfully, a rock you'd find on any beach on the outer Cape. To the untrained eye, it just looks like a normal rock. And until you pick it up and feel it, you would definitely never know that it was possibly an Indian artifact. But if you look at it, and you can see that the sides are fairly smooth here, you can see where it's worn down and it's been used for grinding and possibly pecking. And I believe this to be an Indian hammerstone. This was found up in the upper mill ponds of Brewster, and most likely dates to the woodland period between 450 and 3,000 years ago. What we have next is probably something that most people recognize fairly easily. It's a stone axe or a shafted hammerstone. You can clearly see the band that's been worked around the middle of the stone that was used to secure the stone to a shaft with some sort of lashing. You can also see that the stone has been quite heavily used, and the Indians were notorious for using items until they wore out and completely useless. And I believe this one would probably be one of those examples where you can see where the chips and the breaks have occurred. They probably just turned it over and used the other side, because this side is also very worn. I found this artifact in a driveway on Route 6A after cutting a lawn for a gentleman in 1987. He told me to keep the rock but finish the weed whacking behind his shed. The last items that I have here today are a grouping of artifacts that were one of my favorite finds. These artifacts were found in what's called an Indian shell mitten, which is located on a high hill in Brewster overlooking some water. A shell mitten is basically a Native American garbage dump. They can be many feet deep and wide, and this one I excavated down to 6 feet and never really got to the end of it. Unfortunately, the mitten was mostly bulldozed for a septic tank, so we can only guess whatever else may have been in there. We have, in this grouping, a small pebble with a hole drilled into it, which was probably used as an amulet. The workmanship is unbelievable when you consider that the only drills that they had were stones. There's a scraper here that was broken, and you could still see the sharpness on it, how sharp it really was. In fact, today I think it would probably still be good enough to use to skin a deer. We also have something which for me is a rare find on the Cape. Maybe other people have found many pieces of it, but I sure haven't. This is Indian pottery. Don't find very much of this. This was located in the Midden. I found it while I was sifting, and it's made of local clays and soils and clam shells. And I've only found a few different pieces of this, not very much of it. And then, of course, your stereotypical arrowhead, which more than likely was probably a knife blade, and a broken point. The shell mitten that we excavated was there for a long time, and in the course of age, it was many thousands of years old. I actually almost missed my high school graduation digging this site, and luckily got back just in the nick of time.
Thank you so much for sharing these artifacts with us. If people are interested in learning more about Brewster Historical Society, where can they go?
Well, they can go on to the website at www.brewsterhistoricalsociety.org. And a lot of our buildings, of course, are closed now due to the COVID-19, but we have video tours of several of the 2020 exhibits, including Nellie's Dollhouse, the Cobb House Museum, the Hopkins Blacksmith Shop, the Higgins Farm Windmill, and soon the Harris Black House. And we hope you come down and enjoy or watch on the website. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Chris, for being here with us today. My name is Joanna Hollick. Thank you for your support of the Sunset Series and Eastham 400. If you're interested in supporting Eastham 400 efforts by purchasing commemorative items, we do have several items for sale on our website, eastham400.org. We are selling gold foil First Encounter ornaments, t-shirts with the Eastham 400 logo, and montages made by a local artist. The ornaments feature an image of the shallop and come with a special description card. The t-shirts are available in light blue, navy, and ash gray, and in sizes adult small through 3XL. The montage depicts watercolor images of important historic and well-known landmarks around the town of Eastham. Each of these items are $20. Thank you.